Hello tennis nerds, I hope you're well. Today we're going to talk about power rackets, the best power rackets on the market, and I'm going to describe what I think about the rackets that are currently available. Power is a strong word. It's used in many forms of marketing. Everybody wants power, but what does it do in tennis and what are the downsides of a power racket? And with great power, as you might know, comes great responsibility, and responsibility means the ability to add enough spin for the ball to go in. So think about that. Power rackets tend to give you flat power. Spin rackets tend to give you a little bit more of a launchy, spinny type of power. A power racket can feel like cheating sometimes in practice, but when you are tight in a tournament match, the ball might go a bit further than you want to. So it might not be for you. We will deal with two different categories in this video. Pure power rackets, which are more forgiving, stiffer, larger head size, slightly more open pattern, although more through the court than your typical spin racket, and the smaller head size for a little bit more confidence on your shot, a little bit more control. And how does power rackets then differ from spin rackets, which are also quite similar in terms of specifications when you look at the specifications sheet? Power rackets offer more direct power thanks to a slightly higher stiffness. They usually have a little bit more of a dense pattern. So the patterns have smaller holes in the middle, meaning that you go more through the court and not so much up and lifting the ball like spin rackets. They're more designed to travel on a vertical path, so the windshield wiper, while you're hitting more flat with more confidence with a power racket. So the ball will travel fast like that, will have quite a short dwell time. The ball will not stay a long time on the strings. Spin rackets, on the other hand, we will get to in another video, but they have more aerodynamic throat designs and spin grommets to increase the movement of the main strings to give you more spin and more bite on the ball. So that's the difference with the spin rackets and the power rackets. So power rackets tend to work better for players with flat strokes where you feel like the ball naturally travels through the court more. With a spin racket, then you might have that effect of the ball sailing longer than you had intended. That's because it's for players that hit a little bit bigger targets and they like to generate a little bit more spin at the end of your shot. So let's start with the rackets that are slightly lighter and more forgiving. A category of rackets usually have rackets that are more for intermediate, even to beginner players, larger head sizes, maybe up to 110, 115 within the same category, but then all the way down to 98, which is on the smaller side of control rackets. That is for the more advanced players that can generate their own power and are fine with hitting that sweet spot, which will be smaller on a smaller head size generally. All these rackets that I will mention today are pretty good. It's more about a preference in terms of feel, in terms of grip shape, maybe what you are used to. So that's good to keep in mind. That it's part of what you like. That's why it's always better to demo. I will give you some thoughts around how they differ, but it's kind of up to you to try and see if that works for you, or buy it blindly and then maybe sell or trade if you don't like it. So you know what's up there. It's tough in tennis. You don't get like that custom shop experience like you'd get in golf, for example. Like you try out a set with a simulator and you get it everything down to your specifications and preferences. Maybe we'll get there one day, but most people are buying rackets pretty blindly and strings and so on as well. So it's a bit tricky in tennis that you can't test so easily. So for more power and forgiveness, if we start with 100 square inch head size, like I said, there are larger head sizes with these rackets. We have from Babolat the Pure Drive. It's an icon in the game. Raw power. They made it slightly more dampened this year with this iteration, and I think that makes it a great option for many players, intermediate even to advanced, that like power. A little bit more spinny than some older Pure Drives, but retains that raw pop, but with a bit more comfort than the previous generation. We have the Ease 100, which had even more power this generation than the 2022 one. Comparing those two, they are quite similar, but it's a difference of feel. I feel like they're both relatively spin friendly for a power racket. I would say the Ease is even more powerful than the Drive. So the Drive can hold the ball a little bit better inside the court, but that's just my personal take. I think you might have maybe a different opinion about that, like how you feel the racket, but they're both, I think, top of the line when it comes to power rackets. Those are the two ones that I easily most in my head recommend for players. Although there's nothing wrong with the Dunlop FX500. That might require a little bit more beefing up, maybe like some weight added to it to play at the same plow through and stability of the other two, but it's still a good option. We have the Head Boom MP, which is not that much of a power racket compared to these rackets. It's softer, better for arm comfort, but you're not getting that through the court feel and ball that you get with the drive and the E-Zone. So the Boom MP is not your typical power racket. It's a bit more of a softer, a little more control, and also a little bit higher in launch angle, which is not like the Instinct used to be, which was more of a standard power racket. So it's good to know from head there. Solinco Blackout, pretty standard fare, competes pretty well with the Pure Drive. I would say the Pure Drive has a little bit more explosivity and interesting feel. If you want a lot of power and also spin, the Technifiber TFX1 is a good option, but it's a little bit wild for my liking, personally. I find that to be kind of a bit of a, gives you a crazy amount, and it's tough to control. That's just my opinion. Diadem Nova, it's a good, pretty well dampened power racket. It should be tried. If you haven't tried the Diadem rackets, they actually produce some good sticks there. We have the Wilson Ultra, which is a little bit more raw in terms of the dampening and so on. There will be a new Ultra coming out in a few months when you probably watch this, around August 2025. Stay tuned for that one. I have not yet tried it. I hope to get a demo of it soon so I can start my reviewing process, but that could be interesting from Wilson. So new Ultras to come, so you know. But those are all pretty good rackets. Like, there's nothing wrong with any of these rackets. Maybe I missed some from other brands. However, it's about feel, it's about grip shape. If you're used to Bubble Out, maybe Bubble Out is the easiest choice. If you're used to E-Zones or Yonex rackets, overall, it is a more straightforward choice. So it's good to keep in mind. If you want a power racket with better comfort than most power rackets, the Boom is probably your best friend here. So that's the category with more forgiveness and more power. Then we go to rackets that are a little bit more controlled for advanced players, but still have some stiffness, some power in them. So that's the 98 square inch versions. In all these cases, the power control variant of the power racket is a 98 square inch racket. And I would wait for the Wilson one, for the Ultras coming later. So, and I'm sure we probably will see a Diadem Nova 98 at some point as well, but these are the ones that we have to choose from. The ISO 98 is very, very popular. You've seen players switch to that, especially on the WTA Tour with Madison Keys, for example. A bit more comfort for the 98 this time around, while they made the 100 more powerful. So they have a pretty stark difference there. Not huge, but it's a difference between the 98 and 100. Pure Drive, they added a cross string, 1620, and made it a little bit more soft with the NF2 tech. However, the Pure Drive is still quite like solid, like it feels like it has a lot more swing weight, a lot more weight in the head through the air, and it has a high twist weight, so that really hits the ball like a tank. Can probably be a little bit less good for the arm than the E-Zone, which is whippier, but it's more of a tank feeling. So if you really want to blast the ball flat, Pure Drive 98 probably is a better choice than the E-Zone, while the E-Zone probably a bit more comfortable. I did add the Nordic Dots Model 99, which I think is a good competitor to the E-Zone 98, but it has a softer feel, as do the Head Boom Pro. Those rackets are a little bit more on the control spectrum than the power spectrum, but still like in a power category, I would say. Dunlop FX500 Tour, very low swing weight, used by Popren and some other players on tour now. Good stick, but I felt like that one needed a bit of weight for stability. So if you don't like customizing, I'll probably go for the E-Zone or the Pure Drive, just from the top of my head. We have the TFX1 from Technifiber, the 98 square inch version. That's a new model, but it's very explosive as well. So that you have a bit more launch. So that kind of covers their spin and power segment. When it comes to Technifiber. E-Zone, a bit more dampened in feel than the Pure Drive as well. It's good to keep in mind. It's a little bit harder to feel the ball. Pure Drive, you feel it pretty well, but this is not like a feel category anyway. If you want that, you're going to go to the control category, which we've already published a video about, where you really get a sensation from your playing, but you're not getting that power, that spin that some of these other racket categories can give you. And today, everybody wants more power. I mean, I think there's not a single player on the ATP Tour that wants more control, because they can control the ball with their spin. And with the ever-growing, evolving sport of tennis, it seems that it's getting faster and faster and faster, like everything else in society. So people just want more and more and more, and more power is the name of the game. And spin, of course. One issue that I found with a lot of club players, including myself over the years, is like that it's tough to control a power frame unless you string it higher. And if you string a power frame high, even if it's the 98 here, the risk might be that you lose out on some comfort, and that might bother your arm. So you don't want to use a racket that you have to string really high to control, unless you're Carlitos, you know, where you can do 55, 53. If you're a club player, you want to string lower. I would say try to be around 50 or lower than 50 pounds. That's 22.5 kilos, because that will help you with comfort, probably a bit bigger sweet spot. So if you feel like if you play with this type of racket and you need to string it higher than that, if you have no issues with your arm, sure, but it's going to be a bit stiffer and firmer. I just want to point that out because I know there are a lot of you guys out there that suffer from tennis elbow, wrist pain, and some shoulder issues and stuff, and sometimes the racket does not help, a racket string setup. So take that into consideration before you choose a frame. And power rackets are not for everyone, but since tennis is getting faster and faster, I think more and more people are eyeing these, and you have an option going from, I would say, Boom Pro Model 99, where it's kind of the lower end of the power spectrum, all the way to Pure Drive 98, which I would say is the highest end, and the E-Zone is also pretty powerful, so you know. All right, so please check out our racket resources and discounts on tennisnerd.net, where we collect all our content that we create in Tennis Nerd. Thanks for watching, have a nice day, and don't forget to play some tennis.